So let's talk about GDPR. You've seen those four letters pop up everywhere, right? But what do they actually mean for you and for your data? Well, today we're going to demystify this thing. We're talking about the huge European regulation that basically put you back in the driver's seat when it comes to your personal information online.
Think about it. Every single time you click accept on one of those pop-ups, you're making a deal. You're trading a little piece of yourself, your personal info, for some kind of service. But what really happens to your data after you click that button? For a long, long time, that question had a very, very murky answer. And that right there was the core of the problem. I mean, the internet just exploded. It grew at lightning speed, and the amount of data being collected, it blew up right along with it. All of a sudden, our personal info was being used in ways we couldn't even have imagined. And our laws, well, they were just completely left in the dust, struggling to catch up. This whole situation basically created what you could call a digital Wild West, a place where the rules were super fuzzy and our personal data was pretty much up for grabs. So let's dig into it. What was so fundamentally broken about the old system? Okay, so the old law, which was from way back in 1995, honestly, it was a mess. Imagine this. Every single country in Europe had its own slightly different version of the rules. It created this confusing, tangled patchwork. For businesses, a total headache. And for regular people like us, it just left us feeling like our data wasn't safe at all. The system was just broken. So instead of just trying to patch up that old, broken system, the European Union did something bold. They decided to scrap it and start fresh. They went all the way back to a core, fundamental principle that had kind of gotten lost in the chaos of the digital age. Now, I know this might look like a bunch of legal jargon, but stick with me here. This is literally the very first sentence of the GDPR, and it is an incredibly powerful statement. The entire regulation, the whole shebang, is built on this one simple idea, that controlling your own information is a fundamental human right, period. And this wasn't a small tweak. No, this was a massive, massive shift. We went from that messy patchwork of laws to one single unified rule for the entire EU. We went from totally outdated regulations to a law that was actually designed for the internet age. And maybe most importantly, we went from a system with basically no teeth to one that had real serious power behind it. So what kind of data are we even talking about here? Well, under GDPR, the definition is incredibly broad. It's not just the obvious stuff, like your name and your email address. Oh no, it's pretty much any digital footprint that can be traced back to you. Think about your IP address or the little cookie files that websites use to track you online. All of that, personal data. Okay, this is my favorite part, for real, because this is where GDPR stops being some abstract legal concept and becomes a practical, powerful toolkit that you can use. So let's talk about the superpowers that this law gives to every single one of us. Seriously, these are total game changers. You now have the right to go to a social media company and say, hey, show me every single photo and post I've ever shared with you. You can tell an online store to fix your address because they got it wrong. You have the famous right to be forgotten, which means you can ask for old, irrelevant data about you to be totally erased. And get this, you can even take your data, like your music playlists, from one service and move them right over to a competitor. It's your data, after all. And what about getting your permission, your consent? GDPR slammed the door on those sneaky pre-ticked boxes we all used to see. You know the ones? Now, your consent has to be a clear, active yes. It has to be an affirmative act. You have to consciously opt in instead of just hoping you remember to opt out. All right, so this is a European law, right? But I'm willing to bet you've seen those GDPR pop-ups on websites from all over the world. So how on earth does a law from Europe have such a massive global reach? And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Does a law that was made in Brussels actually matter to a tech company in Silicon Valley or a retailer in Shanghai? The answer is a huge, resounding yes. It absolutely does. If a company, no matter where they are in the world, offers goods or services to people inside the EU, or if they track the online behavior of people in the EU, for things like targeted ads, then they have to follow GDPR's rules. That right there is what gives this law its incredible global power. So, after all that, what's the big takeaway? What's the lasting impact of this huge shift in our digital world? If you boil it all down, the bottom line is this.
GDPR is all about putting you back in control of your personal data. It represents a fundamental shift in the balance of power, moving it away from the big companies that use our information and putting it back into our hands.
And that leaves us with one final big question to chew on. GDPR was, without a doubt, a monumental step. It created a whole new global baseline for privacy. But is it the final destination? Is this the end of the fight for our digital rights? Or is it really just the beginning of a much longer, much more complicated conversation about who really controls our information in this hyper-connected world we're all living in?